So maybe tell us, just to start, a little more about Kingland. What kind of products and markets does Kingland serve? How many employees do you have? Just give us a little background on it.
Sure. Everybody knows what Kingland does, right?
Yes.
That's my standard response, right? Because no one knows what we do. It's our eternal problem. So I'll answer questions, and I would just say throughout the day, if you want to ask questions, I love this to just be interactive. So pepper away at us, and we'll handle it, right? So Kingland, we're a software company. We write software for really big companies. So companies, average customer has 60 to 150,000 employees. 30, 40 $billion in revenue type companies that are really big. Typically, they operate in the financial services industry. So whether you're out in New York, London, other major metropolitan areas, public accounting firms, so firms that do audit and tax work all around the world. Those customers operate in about 200 countries around the world. And we do some work in insurance and we do some work in retail. But effectively, our business model is we have a core platform of software that we use to manage data and write enterprise applications. And the bigger a company is, the more unique they are, right? There's only so many companies at a certain size. We'll use somebody like a Walmart, right? There's really only one Walmart in the world. Walmart may sell groceries, they may sell clothes, and they may have buildings. No one else has the scale that they do. Walmart is not a customer of ours, but you're familiar, right? And so the bigger a company is, the more unique they are and the more specialized their software has to be. And so what we've gotten good at is hiring really smart people from the Midwest that love technology, that love business, and we kind of stick them on these large companies. And so a company will say, we could go buy a product, or we could go hire 150 people to build out software for us. And again, in a 60,000 person organization, 150 people is a very small team, very small. Or we can hire Kingland, we can pay them a fee, and we just know that Kingland's going to take care of it. And so we've really done a nice job building a business of high-profile clients that are really important to how the world works. Where we'll write software and we'll run that software for them for a long time. And that's our core business model. We have about 350 employees right now. Headquarters is here in Clear Lake, the old Genesis building over there. We've had that since 1990. Prior to that, our headquarters is here in this building. So that's a fun fact for today, which is always fun when we come back. We have another operation in Ames, Iowa, where we do an awful lot of work with Iowa State University. They're a pipeline of talent for us. We're the #1 employer of Iowa State University students, have been for almost 15 years. We've employed over 2,000 students since we've been in Ames. So pumping a lot of jobs and money into that community, a lot of reinvestment in just the facilities in the campus town area in Ames, if you're familiar with Ames, right across the street from the university. And then we have an offshore location in China, in Dalian, China. Who here's heard of Dalian? No one. Dalian is a mid-sized city of about 12 million people in northeast China. It is a high-tech hub. Really great people there. I was there last November, and it's just a really good team. So I'm happy to talk about international affairs and view of China and whatnot. It's always an interesting topic for people. So I got that. But the 3 primary locations, we've got an office in Florida, we've got some folks in New York, but that's typically how we operate. What did I miss?
Well, and a somewhat unrelated question. When you guys run the building, was there ever talk of putting a basketball court up here in the 3rd floor? Because when the chamber bought the building, that was my idea. And we're obviously kind of shocked.
Well, we did put a basketball court in our building in Clear Lake, so
Okay.
that's
It
pretty
wasn't
nice.
horrible, right?
Well, I think that we should over a lot of
computer wiring.
Wiring.
All everywhere.
I've heard that they used to hit golf balls up here, though, or whatever that's worth.
I would have taken that too.
We have a simulator too. Everything you wanted, we now
And like your own TV studio. is-
We have a studio as
I mean,
well.
that's cool.
Yep.
So why is Kingland in Clear Lake and not in Silicon Valley,
Great.
Austin, Texas?
Get that question all the time. We're all from Iowa and we just like it here, is the simple answer, right? We believe there's the simplest answer is David Kingland, our founder, is from Lake Mills, Iowa. And when it came time to raise a family, they thought it was important to raise a family here. And, he kind of believed in the philosophy that, well, we've got a good way of life here. We can hire some really good people here and I can hop on an airplane and travel. And that philosophy is really carried in the company for the duration. We were founded in 1992, so we're in our 28th year of business. So we've been around quite a while. And it's worked for us. I'm from Southwest Iowa originally. I grew up on a farm. I learned how to work hard and do the things that we learn here in the Midwest. And our customers notice that, by the way. We've had multiple comments that say, the Midwest work ethic is real. And I joke to people occasionally, I say in the wintertime, remember, we're from Northern Iowa. If you want to give us more work to do, we really don't have anything else to do. So we're happy to take it on and do it. But it's really worked for us. Do we have access to all the talent and the mass amount of people in Silicon Valley and Research Triangle Park and places like that? No, but we have really good people in the Midwest that want to do good work and are just as talented. They should get as much airtime, and so we've really capitalized on that. If you are wanting to be in technology in the state of Iowa, we are a destination.
I can jump around like these.
Do it, man.
There's some COVID questions later maybe, but you mentioned the talent pool and maybe a lack of access. Do you think that could potentially change with, the reported
It is.
exodus out of some of these high-tech,
Yeah.
high-cost of living places or remote work?
Yep. Yeah, we had a young lady, who originally from Fertile, who lived in Chicago for the last 6 or 7 years, that wanted to move out of the city in the last 6 months because of COVID. Fantastic talent. She's back in the state, working for us, doing amazing things. Good success story there. But we're always looking. We do believe that, if you live in San Francisco right now and you're originally from Iowa, I have to believe in the back of your mind you're saying, why am I here? Why am I not home, especially if I can work remote? Same time, we're also able to now potentially hire some people that live in other locations and have them work remote. That's something that we've shied away from historically, but we do think it's becoming more and more viable to have a remote workforce here.
Let's maybe spend just a little bit of time now talking about kind of you and how your work pattern looks like. Maybe just walk us through, do you have a typical day? Do you have this is kind of my routine?
Sure. I don't really have a typical day. I've never had a typical day. I'll just say that I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I love what I do. I love my family. I love where I live. I'm always generally happy. And it's just my situation. I could have never asked for something better. By education, I'm an economist. So I knew nothing about technology. It was my number one concern when I met Kingland back in 2003 and was offered a job. I don't know anything about computers. Well, it'll be okay. You'll learn it. And I took a leap of faith that was the case. And lo and behold, turns out it was. I like business. I like data. I like quantitative things. And so it was a nice kind of marriage for that. And so, what I do today, number one, I jump out of bed, which I love the leadership advice of Warren Buffett. If you don't jump out of bed in the morning, you need to find something else to do. I jump out of bed in the morning. I jump out of bed at 5:30 in the morning. I hop on my computer. I make a cup of coffee, and I start work from my home. I work for about an hour and a half. I clean up emails. I go through, what's the plan for the week, what are things I need to address. Then I get my kids off to school. I take them, and I try to spend a certain amount of time. If we live in the Midwest, and I don't have an hour and a half commute into Manhattan, I am sure as heck going to take my kids to school. And I think that's really important. So I do that. And then I get to the office, and now we can talk about COVID here in a minute. And it's a mixture. It's a mixture of my leadership team, really making sure they've got what they need, understanding where we're at in the business, some client meetings, some partner meetings. I spend a lot of my time strategically saying, where do we need to be 5 years from now, and what does that look like? So the parlay from chief strategy officer to president was a pretty natural extension for me. Historically, I just was looking at this yesterday. I've been to New York 174 times in my career. So I average about 20 trips to New York a month, or a year, historically. A month would be a lot. And so this has been the least amount I've traveled in my entire career this week. And it's just bizarre. So now I run my office, I'm on Zoom and video and WebEx, doing video calls probably 90% of the day, talking to people, either working from home, their office, or somewhere around the country. And it's bizarre where, people that, I'll talk with a guy, I'll give you an example. There's a gentleman named Stephen, who runs operations for Citigroup. Okay, Citigroup, giant financial institution, right? His team is about 1,800 people on his team. He manages, and he runs all transactions that go through Citigroup, financial transactions. So in the month of March, when I last talked to him, April, I think he processed $22 trillion worth of transactions through his unit, right? It's a lot of volume. And so historically, a meeting like that happens in the city, happens in an office, and you're talking to Steve, and maybe you go grab a beer afterwards, and keep working. Now he goes, Tony, we need to catch up. And I said, okay, what are you gonna do? He goes, let's have a beer over Zoom. Okay. And so, it's this weird deal where it's like, okay, you sign into Zoom, and this is April, so we're still getting used to this. And he's got a glass of wine, and I'm in his living room. And Steve, how are you? Oh, I'm good. He's got a British accent. I'm not going to try to do that. But he, and he's like, oh, it's good. Here's what we're doing, and this and that. He's just walking around his house with his wine. That's what's going on with you guys. This is so weird that this is the world I live in right now. But he craved that human. He wanted it, and I wanted it. And so you just do it. I'm like, I'm going to go sit on my porch. He goes, that's a great idea. I'm going to go sit on my porch. So we did that for 5 minutes with each other. And then he's like, my internet sucks out here. I'm going back inside. I said, that's fine, And you just do that. But he's standing at a wall, and he has his home monitor was a 75-inch TV because he wanted to be able to see everything going on in his department in one big screen. And so he's standing at his desk, and there's a 75-inch TV. And he's just standing here talking to me with his glass of wine. And that's a business meeting now in my world, where that used to be an airplane and an Uber and security and, lots of handshakes and lots of time. And so it's just weird right now. So my rhythm has changed quite a bit. Still a ton of interaction, but very different.
So when you start doing that, 5 years from now, as you're thinking about where you're going, or are you going to go back into that world from a year ago? Is it a world we live in now forever? Is it somewhere in between?
I think it's got to be in between. I think you're going to see a lot more remote. I think we have proved that it's viable. My personal belief is we are operating on borrowed time. We are operating off of relational capital that has been built up over years. And so the reason that meeting happened is because Stephen and I know each other. Otherwise, somebody that's never met me is never going to invite me to their home to have a glass of wine. I'm like, hey, I heard you're a really nice person, Christy. Would you like to do a Zoom cocktail tomorrow? It's just not going to happen, right? So people crave that interaction. I really feel like they do. I think we'll figure out a way to safely kind of come back into that. The problem with the cities is mass transit. And this is what we don't experience in Iowa. If you have subway car full of people, a train full of people, 1,000 people on the streets in Manhattan walking past each other, it is going to take a few years for the world to come back to that. I really think there's going to be some slow growth to that. And so the major cities, you're going to see, I think, a slowness to come back to that. Airplanes and meetings and conferences, I think you'll see it come back progressively. But it's changing how we have to think about this stuff.
So we haven't used the word viable in terms of that result.
Yeah. If you're doing a job, a repetitive, do your work job, remote work is completely viable, right? If you're doing something creative, so this is in Kingland's world, when we take our really smart technologists and we say, we've got a problem that this customer really has to solve, and we have to come up with a technology architecture that's never been created before. The best way you do that is you put them in a room around a whiteboard and they hammer it out for a day and for two, right? And then the collaboration happens and it's fast, and you build off of me and I build off of you and we work, right? That is really hard to replicate virtually. And so that's the thing. The other side is just truly sales. I don't know how you buy anything from anybody in this world unless you already need it. And so we're really looking hard at that, and I think every company is looking hard at that. If you have a kind of a global footprint of how do you do this? How do you build relationships? How do you, our customers, I see them, I talk to them, I know them, but you know, I like flying to Cincinnati and having dinner with some of our key clients and talking about their kids and seeing what's going on and just you know, making sure we're good. You cut all that stuff out when you're doing a Zoom, right? My opinion.
We always ask the question something like, who has inspired your leadership style? And I don't necessarily mean just in a good way. Sometimes you probably had a bad leader at some point in your career that you learned what not to. Have you seen both sides of that coin as you progress through your career?
I'm sure I have. I kind of always look forward. I look back occasionally, but I do look forward a lot. And my advice to a lot of managers in particular is you need to work for different executives because you need to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. You need to learn from it. So I pass that advice on to others. Rarely do I think about it for myself. You know, I've probably learned all kinds of bad habits from people, but I've learned a lot of good ones. And so I look back, you know, I spend a lot of time with pastors. So I think there's you know, leading a church and leading people that don't have to be there, that aren't required to be there, is a really hard thing to do. And so I think there's a lot of inspiration that comes there. I have a very good relationship with David Kingland as an entrepreneur. You know, I never viewed myself as very entrepreneurial, but you know, you spend enough time with one for 20 years, and you start to realize maybe you are a little bit, and there's a different way to think about this. So David's had a big influence on me. And then coaches. I look at coaches as really influential. I think training people to work as a team and to improve personally, but improve as a team. I always think that dichotomy of individual versus team is an important aspect. Okay, that helped.
Yeah.
I saw that question and I thought, you know, that's a hard one. I don't know who's inspired me.
Sure. It seems the previous people, some of the ones that it seems like they always quickly identify the bad one. And say, oh, I remember this guy, I hated him. And I've had lots of good ones too, but boy, that guy.
If I don't like him, I just went past him. You're done. I'm moving on.
When you say coaches,
fire your manager. If you don't like him, fire him. Right? If you're confident in yourself and you think you can do that, just get rid of them. They don't need to be there.
Did you have coaches in your own personal life that inspired you, or just that genre of people in general?
No, I mean coaches in my personal life. Like sports has been a key part of my upbringing as a kid, and in the Midwest, that's kind of what you do. And so high school coaches were good. In college, I had coaches that were very, I was a college athlete at Central College, and track coach that will pull you aside as a young, dumb 21-year-old, and this coach needs to have this little quiver lip when he's looking at me, and it's like you need those moments though, because they kind of get you back on the right path. Not everybody has them, right? And so coaches like that, I just saw out of college, I coached 1 year at East High for a guy named John Sutton. He was passed away yesterday. So I posted on Facebook. John was a really influential guy. I only knew him for a year, but it's neat to see guys like that I kind of forgot that I learned a lot from him, right? In that little era of my life. So that's good. And then, just coaching now, I coach a lot of these sports. You learn a lot. You learn how to deal with kids. You learn how to deal with mistakes and how to foster teamwork. So I just always love it.
Do you have a kind of a 1, 2, 3 of your most important things that you have to do as a leader? These are my jobs, how to make sure I'm hitting these bullet points.
Yeah.
Every day, every week, every month.
Yeah. I'll give you my take right now. It changes, right? It changes as you move forward. So I took over as president in April of last year. So I'm a year and a half in. I've always been active in every aspect of the business. And so I kind of viewed the change in the job as, this is just the next step, right? This was the first really material change in my job in a really long time. And so I've had to fundamentally change a lot of things. My number one job is to ensure that my team has a thing. And so I'm a team builder, right? And we are in the business of, I just had this conversation this morning with a young guy. So we're in the business of writing software, but we as leaders are in the business of team building. And so if we don't have teams that can execute, that know what they're going, know where they're headed, we're not doing our job. And so there's a lot of intangibles that go into team building, but that's job number one. Job number two is to communicate. I need to probably spend 25 to 30% of my time communicating. That can be exhausting, right? That can be, it can feel monotonous. The old adage is once you're sick of the message, everyone else is probably hearing it, and there's a lot of truth to that. And so as a leader, you really have to communicate. Some of that's one-on-one, some of that's in mass, some of that's publicly in the world. And so I have to spend probably 30% of my time communicating. But the last thing that I do as a leader that I think is really, really important is I try to produce something once a week. I think if all you do is play manager in society, I think you're missing out on what's fun about business. And so I try to hold myself accountable to producing. It could be simply clarifying an idea down to a list and saying, this is actually what's important. It could be producing a diagram to explain the concept. It could be writing something. And so I try to hold myself to that standard of production. I often tell people, if you produce one good thing a week over the course of a year, you're going to have 50 things, and that's a heck of a year. And I love that perspective. I think that's a pretty darn good year. So that's my adage. Yeah, I try to. And the other thing I'll say too, and this I'm not very good at, is you need to take a certain amount of time just to think. So that the antithesis of the production side is, my morning walk. I would love to go for a walk every morning for 20 minutes and just cruise around, right? I do a variety of things. I don't do it every day, right? Because I'm human. I just get busy. I think I'm doing something else. I'm tired. It's cold. I come up with a million reasons why not to. But I'll tell you, the weeks where I go for a walk every morning for 20 minutes are my best weeks.
So is this a pre-work walk or is this a middle of the morning?
I'll do it. Pre-work always works better, but I'll do it when I eat. It's good mentally, it's good physically, it's good as a perspective set.
So that maybe leads to a question I was going to ask later on about just maybe some reflective or type practices. Do you have anything else? Yeah. Do you come back from the walk and say, hey, I got to write that down?
Oh, yeah.
Or is this just
Yeah, my wife would say, I'll go for it. If I have a real hard problem, one of my best techniques ever, I like to run or cycle, mostly run. If I have a really hard problem to solve, we're just wrestling through something, I'll leave and I'll go for a run and I'll kind of, before the run, I'll program it. Okay, I'm going to think about this and think about this. And I run, you unpack the problem. You can do a walk, you can do whatever you like to do. It has to be something that's fairly repetitive and doesn't require thought. You don't want to hurt yourself. But every single time I will come home from those and it's just crystal clear. And I'll be in my office and I've just got to unload it. And my wife will walk by and she'll say, when are you going to be done? I said, 40 minutes. Okay, let me go. And she just leaves me alone because she knows I've had this aha, I've had this clarity, and it's time to get it out and to really use it. And so that's my technique that I use a lot when things are cloudy.
Let's talk a little bit more about the COVID experience, I guess, in your business. Has there been, tell us a little bit about just some of the kind of raw logistics of what you've had to do in your business, and looking back now, 6-8 months in, would you have done things differently? You've done it well, and kind of what's been your thoughts on
Absolutely. So we're in a very unique situation in Kingland in that, our work is to write software. And you can write software anywhere in the world as long as you have a computer. And so our business is really built well to handle this kind of stuff. We have an operation in China. And at the very end of the year, last week of the year, December 29th or so, we started to catch wind that there was this thing going on in China. And our management team over there, who's been with us from the beginning, said, we're keeping an eye on this. And if the Chinese are good at anything, they are incredibly good at following the rules. Because that's how they've been trained their whole life, right? And so if there is something that must be done, they do it and they do it very well. And that's been our experience. And so as I got into January, it's like, oh, this is not going to go well. And so in mid-January, we went 100% remote in China. So we, and we went 100% remote in the United States on March 16th. And so we had 2 months of practice of how to do this prior to that. And it was just at the end of the Chinese holiday, the Chinese New Year. And so the national government extended the holiday a week. Everybody stayed home, and our employees worked from home for a month. And they were 25% more productive. And so it was like, ooh, well, that was unexpected. What do we take of this? This is kind of interesting. And then they progressively got back to the office, and right at the end of February, they were coming back to the office. We had full reports every day of every illness and thing. If Sally had a scrape, we knew they had a scrape. And if somebody had a runny nose, we knew they had a runny nose. And transparency into the situation was just incredible. And then right as that happened, we started to get a little nervous in the United States. And we do a certain amount of work with the United States government, particularly in the financial industry, with an organization called the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, who regulates the financial markets. And the SEC called us on the week before the 16th, on like the 11th, and said, do you guys have a business continuity plan? And the answer is yes. We have a very robust business continuity plan. We know how to operate if bad things happen. It's our business. We're very, very resilient. And he said, well, have you tested it? I'm like, well, kind of. No, I mean, really tested it. Well, probably not as well. Why don't you do that? That was a Wednesday. And then, so we put our plans in place. We're like, well, let's test on Monday. And we knew that test would probably not be a test. It would probably be permanent. And so in the course of that weekend and everything else, we prepped everybody, we got everything going. We told everybody you're going to work from home on Monday. And then I think Friday afternoon we said, you're not just going to work from home on Monday. You better make sure everything's set up and they work their whole week. This test may run long, and we should just be aware of that. And so then it just snowballed into, this is no longer a test. We are 100% remote. Everybody needs to be home. Everybody in the industry was doing it. BC was shutting down. New York was shutting down. And it was like, we were feeling it. But same scenario. All of a sudden, U.S. productivity goes up. So people, they started to focus more. They had less distractions in the office. They didn't have to drive as much. And it was like all these benefits in the early days really started to happen. And so it's like, okay, we'll do this for a while. We'll get through it. It'll be good. And so we started to meet every couple of weeks and say, well, when are we going to go back? Are we April 1st? Are we ready to go back, guys? It's good, right? And I'm Mr. Optimistic, right? I'm like, we'll wear the mask. We'll do this. We'll get back to the office. And it just got worse and worse and worse. So it played out it is. We've stayed remote the entire time. July 16th, we entered phase 1 of our return, which right now we allow employees optionally to return to the office if they want to. If you're in a common space, you have to wear a mask. You have to sanitize as you enter the building. And there's some other rules and regulations. We have a cafeteria that's limited use. We have a gym space that's limited use. And so we've tried to keep it really, really safe for everybody. And a very small percentage of our employees is back in the office. They just don't want to. They like coming home. And that's been fine. for now, I think is the case. And so what I probably, the lesson learned I had more than anything was, it's been fascinating just to watch the difference of opinions. And I think I have one of the best leadership teams around. I would put them up against anybody. But even in our leadership team, like, everybody's on a different page. We are always aligned on what we're going to do in business. We have good arguments, we have good discussions. It's fantastic. But when it comes back to return to the office, man, is there a wide variety of opinions. And then you apply that to the whole company, and man, is there a wide variety of opinions. And so we've had to learn to be a lot more patient than we thought we were going to have to be. We have to let this play out a little longer. It's forced us to really look hard at our flexible work programs. It's forced us to work hard at our remote work programs, and we've made revisions to those, which are good. Just last week, we rolled out a change where we're going to fund for all employees a pool of money for them to invest in their home office, so that they have basically the exact same office at home that they have in the workplace, so that they actually can go between the two. And so we think that's a more sustainable model to allow them to do both, because a lot of times the resistance to going back to the office was, I took all my monitors from my office and I took them home and I got my keyboard there that I really like. And so our adage was, just do it, right? Do both, so that you have some flexibility. So we tried to get ahead of that. And then we just communicated last week as well, it's probably 2021 before we're really 100% back in the office, is our expectation. You run into holidays and you just, you want to be, I think, considerate of the employees and what they're going through, and it has to make sense when it works. So we'll give them 30 days notice on when we're officially going back, but we're a lot more cautious.
Did you see them for 3 games?
Now they haven't built. They haven't built. It was really hot in the beginning. Now it's still really good, but it's not as hot as it was in the very beginning. The other thing that's fun, Alice mentioned, so we did a major renovation to our headquarters the last couple of years. We built a full-scale production studio in our headquarters. We now host monthly town halls for all employees. And so Todd Rognes and I sit on stage with all the cameras and lights shining, and we communicate to every employee in the company via video in a professionally done way. And that's been fantastic. That's another really good thing, is it's forced us to communicate more. It's forced us to be clear on our message. We used to kind of go office to office and host little lunch and learns and town halls like this, and it was nice. But not everybody hears it, and not everybody hears the same thing when you're doing it one at a time. I'm sorry, I keep going back to you, Candy. No, you're fine. So that's been a really positive experience, getting those town halls going.
Are you doing marketing things in that studio as well, or what kind of?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Corporate band
What's that?
corporate band or.
No,
music group or-
no, it's all high scale stuff. This is the entrepreneur in David. He's launching a number of businesses that are more music and entertainment related. That becomes a really important asset to do that. So, anybody watching Netflix in the last 6 months? Yes.
Oh.
You and everybody else. And so the need to produce content is pretty important. So we feel like having that capability allows us to branch into some areas, which is pretty fun.
You mentioned or talked a little bit about the operation in China. I'm interested in how some of your clients and then the U.S. government looks at the fact that you have an operation in China, and have you had problems or issues that you've had to navigate?
The only issue we have is there's an election going. Candidly. It's just a lot of optical problems. Every single one of our clients has an operation in China. So the harsh reality is we're very dependent on China. That is how the world works. That is how businesses have been built up over the last 20 years. Our operation in Valley, every company you can think of, from General Electric to Rockwell Collins and Cedar Rapids, the city group that we talked about earlier, they all have operations in Valley.
They don't care to be either.
They don't, right? I mean that's at a certain level they don't. Optically, they do get a little concerned. And there is some sensitivity around it. You know, our Chinese employees can't access certain data, right? There are certain data that we do restrict, they have zero access to, and that's just a good practice as a high security operation that we do. The U.S. government does voice some concern from that. So we passed all the audits, and they're comfortable with what we're doing. But the media doesn't help, you know, in any stretch of the imagination. Our employees are fantastic. They're our employees. It's a captive subsidiary. They're wonderful, wonderful people. They're incredibly loyal and are very, very good workers. And I'll tell you, they're just trying to feed their families like we are. That's the reality. So the image that gets created of this, you know, evil China empire, it's just not our experience. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure there's a lot of weird things that happen with the, you know, supernatural or supranational level, but at the end of the day, having 110 employees in China, I love them. They're fantastic. It's been a really, really positive experience for us.
Tony, you know, the chamber had, or did have, a global familiarization program, and China was really the first place that we used trips to familiarize, you know, because transitioning to the global economy is difficult for islands, and you have a perception about China. And I talked to Ted about this, I think we did 5 trips to China, and on our last one, we actually visited Ambassador Branstad in Beijing, and he was so very happy to see people from Iowa. So if you guys haven't been a call on him yet at his office, you should do so.
We have employees that have visited the Grandstand, or what is official name? Ambassador Grandstand. And then he's actually visited our location in Brownlee. And it was so cute. He came 2 years ago in the fall and announced he wanted to come see us in Brownlee. And so we did. And like our team there, they got pictures from Lake Mills. Like they just searched the internet and thought, oh, there's a church in Lake Mills. And so they printed a picture and they decorated an entire wall to welcome him to Dolly, because they knew there was this tie to Iowa. Branstad, Todd Rodman, and State of Kingland were all from Lake Mills, and so there's this neat kind of tie to it. Man, they thought it was the coolest thing in the world to have that with Branstad. So yeah, we, you know, over the course of the year, you'll see, you know, our Chinese employees typically they're in Clear Lake. They come back and forth. Our U.S. employees go to China. We think that relationship stuff is really, really important. So lately, it's been a lot of video conference.
It sounds like you guys get a lot of frequent flyer miles.
We do that, yeah. A lot of frequent flyer miles, that's correct. Yeah, and I would say the other thing is probably the most fascinating thing to me has been my first trip really hit this one last year. I've only been twice around, so you're ahead of me in this. You know, China forever had this one child model, right? Which you've all heard about. But when you actually experience it, what it plays out is it means most of the people don't have cousins, and they don't have aunts and uncles. They have parents and grandparents, right? But you play out the lineage of how all this plays out, yeah? Which means their coworkers are like their family. And that's been the biggest benefit, is they care about each other tremendously well. When we come visit them, it's like your uncle that you love from Minneapolis coming for Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, they just welcome you. They take care of you. They are just so genuinely happy to see you because you're family. And so there's just this really cool cultural aspect to China that we really appreciate. And it's been great. The turnover is super low versus, you know, we could have put an operation in India, and a lot of folks have done it. Turnover there is really, really high, very transactional. China's much more loyal. So it's been positive.
Very interesting.
And Canada makes you feel terrible because we don't reciprocate very well. When they come to Clear Lake, it's like, hey, what did you guys do this weekend? We went to the Mall of America. Oh, how was it? Good. Get some stuff? Yeah, okay, well, see you at lunch, you know? And they're like, hey, if you want to go out for dinner tonight, hey, can we take you to play badminton? And then they're just so hospitable. We are not. We can get better.
We're supposed to be reliable. We're supposed to be good at that.
We're bad at it. We're not good. I tell you.
You know, one of the things we always like to hear from folks is just how do you celebrate success and hitting goals and things within your organization? Do you have techniques or specific things you do for your employees?
Yeah, so we run on I say we have a variety of things. We run on a 6-month calendar for goal setting. So every employee has goals, every employee has performance reviews, and as you've been there a few years, typically your goals have some sort of monetary tie to them too. So if you get a goal, you're gonna get paid. We feel like that generates better motivation, it's better management, and it's worked for us for a long, long time. So we're a high incentive kind of culture. So that runs like clockwork. Every 6 months, we go through a cycle and that works. If we have really challenging projects, we will do special incentive programs and really rewards and recognition. So we just did a major release of a big piece of software last month. I think 42 people got a bonus that we said, hey, he said, you want to do anything? Like, yes, here's the 42 people that all really contributed to this. Let's do something. It's not huge, but it's a thank you and it's a way to recognize them. We have an internal blog system, so anyone can write anything at any time and share it with the entire company. And there's a lot of promotion of, hey, I just want to call out Robin. Robin did this awesome thing. Here's what we did, and this is good. And so there's communication that helps with the reward system. And then the last thing, we've had a big focus on core values, and this has been a big rollout for us this year. And we've got 4 core values: authenticity, indeed we are and true. Creative, and we'll be really creative and try to embody that every day. Excellence, we want to do incredibly good. Ownership, we want everyone to feel like an owner and to take ownership of what they're doing, right? And so right now in the company, if you see any employee really exhibiting one of those core values well, you can stick them on the spot with a reward token, employee to employee. So if you guys are on a team and you're like, Robin creatively came with this idea, you can give her a gold token, and that's worth $100 to go get a gift certificate or a new set of speakers or something like that out of the closet. So that's been a fun program. It's a way to drive culture into the company and just help people, kind of recognize it in each other. It's been really fun.
Very good. Are you a book reader?
Yeah.
What's on the nightstand or the corner of your desk right now?
Right now, I'm going on a trip next week where I have to have a book because there's no electronics. So I have to restock that. Right now I'm reading Bob Iger's autobiography. He was the CEO of Disney. It's not very good. That's why I'm kind of wrestling with it. I don't really like it. I thought it'd be excellent because I love Disney. Disney's one of my favorite companies in the world, but just but I'm giving it a chance. Right?
Do you have some things sitting on your bookshelf that you would say, hey, these are really good, I really enjoy
Sure.
Sure. On that list?
I like biographies, not autobiographies. I would rather read a book that tells stories about how someone led than a book on leadership that says, well, this is how a good leader should do things. I'd rather derive the leadership lessons than be told the leadership lessons. So, favorite book, I would say in the last 10 years is a book called Creativity Inc. It's the story of Pixar. Pixar, to my knowledge, probably had the greatest run of any company ever. They produced 19 movies before they were sold to Disney. All 19 movies were world #1. So they produced 19 products and every single one of them was the best in the world. I think to do that, you have to do something right. And I love the stories in it. I love how they built the business. I love the challenges they had. And there's just great lessons in it. My favorite lesson in all of it, and I do use this all the time, is the first idea always sucks. And that's just how they looked at it. When they first create the first version of a movie that we never see, it sucks. It's not good. And so, we have to remember that. It's like, I have a really good idea. Well, we have a pretty good idea. And if we all work on it, we're probably going to get a lot better. And so it's the ultimate book of teamwork and creativity that produces really cool things. And so I love Creativity Day. That's a good one. In the last year, I read a biography from Stephen Schwartzman, who's the founder of Blackstone, which is the largest private equity firm in the world. Really neat guy, really interesting stories of how he's done things business-wise, politically, to help the country, and just do some things there. So that's a high recommended right now as well.
Very good. I think kind of point where maybe open it up. Do you guys have questions that you'd like to ask that you haven't addressed yet?
I have a question.
Yeah.
We talked about, how a lot of your clients are large and specialized in needs, so the products that you make are specialized.
Very
in needs.
specialized.
So what are the challenges, maybe sometimes you haven't succeeded, or how you succeed at articulating what your product is going to be when you haven't created it yet?
Yeah, it's a lot of the challenges come from just, you have to diligently go through the process of making sure that you're aligned on what do they want, what are we going to deliver, and making sure that we're clear. And sometimes you miss, right? So that does produce challenges. There are always challenges when the person that hired you leaves, right? So you're hired to deliver this big thing, and then so-and-so gets a new job and moves on. That produces the challenges. But almost all of it gets into just this alignment of expectations. Where I steer that towards is, it's this question of how I started it all. What does Kingland do? This is my mission right now. I am going to clarify that for the world, because if we are clear about what we're really good at and why you should hire Kingland, I think customers will self-select. So I'm working on that.
So we have a personal side.
Yeah.
So here you are, private sector, responsive, and, you choose to serve on the school board.
I do.
That's a whole different slow change. And so how do you, what do you bring to that world that is different, and how do you put that into work-life balance?
I'll answer very honestly. So naively, I didn't even realize the school board was an elected position when I first decided to do that. I kind of thought you just raised your hand and, if they liked you, you probably get nominated and selected. And so the fact that I had to run for the school board was fascinating. I had zero intention of ever running for a political office. It was not the goal, right? I wanted to help the school board. I mean, we're vested in North Iowa, personally. We're vested in North Iowa as a business. And people care about the school. I care about the school. If we're going to attract young people to move to North Iowa to start their family, that school better be doing good. And so I have a very specific reason I come to school board, is because it is going to be successful. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make it successful. So I've just made it my mission to say that's a part of why I do what I do. And it's authentic, back to our core values. I love it. I think it's fun. I think my kids enjoy it. I want the next generation of kids to enjoy it, and I think my company benefits from it. And so there's a million reasons why I'm on the school board. For me personally, one of the things I love about the school board is I really have to be patient. I'm a high energy guy, right? You guys see that. I have to shut my mouth every once in a while on the school board and just listen. And I'm not terribly good at that. And so it's been a very good, I would recommend as leaders, you need different settings to practice your skills in, because it makes you better. And so you have to, okay, I have to behave and think differently here. Prepping for this session today, I don't do a lot in North Iowa. But this is good. I like talking with people. I like the interaction. It's helpful. So that's been really good on the school board. The other side of it, I would say, is we just have a phenomenally great board. We have a phenomenal superintendent in OG. The board, we have a retired teacher administrator, which is great. We have an attorney, which is great. We have a doctor, which is great. We have a manufacturing, person who has business sense, very financially, operationally, and then you have a crazy business, right? And so the five of us, it's just magic. It really works well. There's great counterpoints and collaboration and good alignment on vision. And so I've enjoyed every minute of it. People have been, how do you balance them? It's just another meeting. We have on Tuesday night, you go meet, you go do your thing, you go on. If you like it, it doesn't matter. Thanks for the question.
Just wondering, how do you recruit outside of this area? Do you go through companies, or are you trying to recruit from California and all that? And how do you?
We don't recruit internationally. We don't recruit nationally very well. Most of our recruitment, 80% of our new employees come through Iowa State. So we've invested very strategically in the Iowa State community, hiring young people that want to live in the state of Iowa and want to challenge them. Right? So that's job number one. The 20%, it is a little wider, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, Minneapolis, kind of net. But people want to live where they want to live, has been our historic experience. And frankly, it's really hard to get people to move with that. So we tried really, really hard. Originally we didn't have our Ames office at the scale that it is now. We told all these 22-year-olds to move to Clear Lake. It didn't work for a while, because they just don't want to be here. But when you're 28 and looking for a place to raise your family, North Iowa's a really good place, and so I promote that a ton. We try to do that. So. But the national recruitment's hard. Yes.
Well, actually, my first question is, were you seeing any diminishing return from the remote work, and I think you covered that.
It's been very. If it wasn't acceptable, we wouldn't tolerate it, but it's been good.
So, what is your sales cycle like?
Super long.
Tell me about how you
Super long.
business development.
The longest sale that I've sold a lot of the stuff that we do personally. The work that we're doing with the SEC, federal government, that was a 7-year sales cycle. So I started that work in 2012, and we got it closed in 2020. Long cycle. Average sales cycle beyond that goes probably 18 months. So it takes big enterprises run on big enterprise budgets, and so the budget cycle runs once a year, and we have to figure out if they're gonna spend millions of dollars, which is what we want. It just takes a while to get that through the cycle. But a lot of relationship stuff. It's we're a technology firm, and so you have to typically people that are more business oriented are our customer, but the technology folks have to vet us and say, yeah, these guys are good. And so we have to sell to 2 different camps a lot of times.
I know it's darting and decision makers.
We do. And then you run into a situation of where are they all located?
Oh, yeah, wow.
So-and-so, the decision maker for one of our big customers, the head of global risk for one of the accounting firms. Well, we need to talk with Wally at some point in time. Well, he's on a 6-week trip through Southeast Asia and Europe, and he'll be back in the United States in October. We can get you on the calendar November 1st. I mean, that's what we're used to, is that kind of cycle.
You started developing patience before school.
I've got macro patience. I don't have micro patience. That's the difference. But yeah, people say I'm very long-term greedy, and I take that as a compliment. I will always take the long-term over the short-term. I'm very patient. Yes.
I'm curious, I should preface by saying both my parents are computer programmers. So
Oh,
I kind of
fun.
have and my dad worked for him for this long time.
No.
I'm curious how you are able to manage like the generational divide between the older folks who are in that technology world, who grew up in a very different technology world
Yeah.
than we are now, and the younger folks who are coming out of AIM, and how that works in the leadership,
in taking time to go play basketball in your basketball court, or some older folks that don't.
Pickleball.
Or that, yeah, pickleball.
Pickleball is like, you want to know what the engineers love? They love
Yeah.
all the time.
But there's a huge, you know, my parents' generation, we don't do that. This generation, it's expected that people do that. How do you talk about that?
Well, the answer is, because of our model, we probably don't have too much of it. I mean, I think the average age of somebody that came is 30 years old, all of it. And so it's a very young culture because of technology. You have to be, and the type of technology we do is very innovative. And so the honest answer is that the engineering culture, which is what I kind of promote. So we've got our CTO, Jason Toyne, he sets the tone, right? He's an experienced guy, he's in his late 40s. But the core value of our engineering culture is, do you know what you're doing? Do you have good chops? And so it kind of self-selects. If you don't really understand technology, the culture is just going to reject you. And so there's a kind of a purity to how it works, honestly. You know, for the engineers, it's not like you're kicking out, it's just, they don't feel comfortable, the teams don't get along, they don't gravitate towards this. We hire, I'll use the example of Iowa State. Do we hire kids that have 4.0s in computer science? Sure. But only if they program in their free time. And that's the clue. Would we hire someone with a 2.9 GPA in computer science? Yes, if they program in their free time. Because that's what we want. We want people that love it, that just really embody this. And so the culture kind of self-selects in and out what fits in. Age is irrelevant.
You know, that your industry is so progressive with what you do offer, basketball or football, that kind of stuff. I went to visit a business in Santa Barbara, California.
Yeah.
They had like 80 dogs in their office because they were a technology company, and that was what you do if you're in that industry. And they had dog treats everywhere, and they had trails, and it was right on the beach. They could go out there. It's just, I'm curious how you find. You're kind of competing in that world of what are those companies doing right now? Or do you have the last one of these, it was a fund manager, right? Was it a person assigned to making it fun to work there? I mean, how do you do that? How do you add that value to how do you get ideas of what everybody else is doing?
Yeah, we don't think about technology when I think about like my friends who go into engineering and stuff, they're very analytical. I don't think about them taking a break.
Yeah.
Have fun. Like, I work at events and I sit behind a computer all day. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
It's
They
weird to
have
think
to have
that
fun
way.
at those, or else you can't compete in that world like us for our employees.
They do. Yeah. The good news is we do travel a lot and we see it. So when you go to Silicon Valley, you see some of these companies. You go to New York and you see what Google is doing in the iron district. You get a feel for what's going on out there.
You go to those businesses as well, check them out.
Because we're partners with them. And so, you go to Amazon, and I love this lady, Sue Lee. She was our kind of lead lady at Amazon, and she just walked in. She did not have shoes on. She just walked in barefoot into this room, and she'll stand there and do that. And she'll have her dog at her, because that's just what they do. We're still Iowans at the end of the day. Right? So we've tried to pick the things that we think are, safe, maybe a little cutting edge, but going to be pretty universally acceptable. I could have never predicted that pickleball would take off the way that it did. But that was employee led. So that the real answer is, if you give them the space and you give them the freedom, they'll figure it out. And so we buy into that entrepreneurially. It's like, we have a game room. There's a pool table, there's darts, there's a skee-ball machine, it's fun. It's super fun. Our engineers will be in there on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock playing board games, because that's what they like to do. But we created the space, they filled it, they've self-organized it. They've got a 12-pack of beer in there. Good for you guys, right? Have your fun, and we're happy to help you, because they live in an apartment, and they don't really have enough room to have everybody over, and so they use the facility. That's what we want, right? That's going to keep them there. That's going to keep them excited, because we're making it easy for them to do what they want. They always do. They're very good with it.
Well, and they have people in it.
They do. And it's neat, and I'll be in there with my kids playing basketball, and, hey, Tony, you want to play? Oh, thanks guys, you know, because I don't have any clue what they're doing. Way over my head. Way over my head.
One more question. You
Yeah.
talked about you guys do, goal setting, performance reviews of employees maybe every 6 months. Do you solicit feedback from your employees and management team? Do you take any critique or feedback from your employees at all? And how do you use that, or how do you discuss that feedback?
Yeah, we do it a lot. So the performance review cycle, we're very process driven. And we made a decision to do that about 2 years ago because we feel like if we get really good at process, it's going to allow us to solve harder and harder problems, right? And so we buy in. Kingland is a process culture. Everything has a process. Everything written down. Everything runs in routine. And there's just a rhythm to it all works. If you've never experienced it, we come in and like, oh boy, there's a lot here. So, our job descriptions are different. Our job descriptions say exactly what's expected of you. And, if you see a job posting for a software engineer on Google, it might say, you need to be able to write Java code. At Kingland, it will say, we need you to write 293 lines of code per day in order to be successful. So we're very specific in all what we expect, and we think that's valuable. That then promotes a monthly one-on-one. So every month, every employee and every manager in the company meet and we talk about what's expected of each other, how to do it. And it's productive. It's not micromanaging. It's, hey, Christy, you're doing an awesome job. How can I help you do it? And so that happens once a month. And every 6 months, we pump the brakes and take a step back and say, you've accomplished a lot. Let's talk about this. You did a great job. Here's one thing you did really well. This one, and you're like, I know, and we can probably do better at that. Oh yeah. And so a lot of that, there's constant dialogue between managers and employees that is happening every month that is really, really important. And it may sound simple, but it's hard to pull off. I think we had 89% of those one-on-ones in the entire company happen every month. We like to set that bar at 80%. We like to hit it, but we measure so that we know. Broadly, particularly in the COVID timeframe, we had done a lot of surveys to employees. How's management doing? Do you feel like you have what you need? How's your energy? This last one last week. How's your energy level? We got a lot of interesting feedback. There's people their employees are getting tired. And so we're always trying to we don't ask the same thing over and over again, but we're trying to seek feedback and get that. Do we hear everything we as management need? Probably not, but we're open to it. So pretty fun. Other questions?
The last thing we always ask is just if there's someone in the room that's, at that entry level management, mid-level management, and aspires to be the C-level person someday, what are some good words of advice you give that person?
Build relationships and do excellent work. Do those two things in life as a way of looking at things like that. And then seek advice. Seek lots of counsel and listen to people that say, All right. Well, thanks for the questions, everybody. Hopefully you guys learned a little more about Kingland. You're still a little mysterious. We'll solve that over time.
All right, well, thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you, Mike. Really good.